If you've worked much in Dynamo, you're probably more than experienced at using lists to store numbers, geometry, or Revit elements. A list is used to store objects in an ordered manner. In Dynamo, all data outputting from nodes that is more than one item is essentially a list. So let's have a look at some of the fundamentals of using lists in Python. In a new Dynamo file, let's go ahead and place a new Python script node, and then open it up. Creating a list can be done in a few different ways. The simplest method is using square brackets to create an empty list. For example, let's create a variable named lst, and we'll assign to this an open and close square bracket, and then output lst. As you can see, we're outputting an empty list. We can also create a list with predefined items. For example, let's create a new list variable, and we'll name it lst_nums. And this time, inside of the square brackets, we'll add the numbers 0 to 4 separated by commas. The commas here are used to separate our objects as separate list items. Let's output lst_nums to have a look. Perfect. So we have a list of numbers 0 through to 4. Lists don't all have to be the same object type. For example, we can create a list that has numbers and strings. Let's try this by changing 1 to the string hi. Great, so you can see that we have a combination of items. Another way we can create a list of numbers is by using built-in functions such as range. This function works like the range node in Dynamo. The integer parameter we provide will create a sequential list of numbers the size of the parameter. For example, let's create a variable named lstRange, and we'll assign to this a call to the range function using 10 for the parameter. When we output this, you can see we have a list of 10 numbers, 0 through to 9. Lists can be indexed like strings. Each item in a list has a position that is assigned to a specific index starting with 0, which can be accessed by that index. For example, let's create a variable named lst_index, and we'll assign to this the first index from lstRange by adding square bracket 0 square bracket after the variable. And then we'll output lst_index, and we get that first index. We can get the items in reverse by using negative numbers. For example, if we wanted to get the last item from lstRange, we could index it with -1. And now we get the last item in the list. We can also slice lists the same as strings. Let's try this by creating a variable named slice, and we'll assign to this a slice from the index 2 to 8 from the variable lstRange. Then output slice. Great, so we get the numbers from index 2 through to 8. This is useful when we need to copy a list by not using a start or stop in the slice. For example, let's create another variable named copy and assign to this a slice from lstRange using no indexes. When we output copy, we get a direct copy of that original list. We learned earlier that objects have methods that we can use to perform some function with the object. Lists are objects and therefore no different. Let's have a look at some of the methods of a list that can be quite useful in Python. One of the main ones that we'll be using throughout this course is the append method. This allows us to append or add some object to the end of a list. For example, let's append 8 to the copy list by using copy.append and then the item to append. Then when we run it, you can see that 8 has been added onto the end. To remove items from a list, we can use the pop method. This will remove an item from the end of the list and return it, or pop with an index for the parameter to remove a specific item. For example, let's remove the last item from the copy list after we've appended it. So copy, pop with no parameters. Great, so you can see that 8 has now been removed. Let's try removing an item at a specific index, say index 0, and we'll assign it to the variable num. To do this, create the variable num and assign to it copy.pop and then 0 for the index. Then when we output num, you can see that we've retrieved the 0 at index 0. Two other useful methods are the sort and reverse methods. Say for example, we had a random list of numbers. For example, randoms equals and then a list of random numbers. We can sort these by simply using the sort method. So let's output randoms.sort and hit run. You can see that we actually get null, and this is because sort doesn't return a new list. So in order to use this, we need to use the method and then output randoms. Perfect. So you can see that list of numbers has now been sorted. We can reverse the list by simply using the reverse method. So randoms.reverse, then run it. Perfect. Our list has been sorted and reversed. Lists have many methods that are useful when sorting and managing data from Dynamo. Lists also allow us to group objects together so we can associate values and use them in meaningful ways.